the ACDC Beyond the Thunder podcast. We've got your season ticket on a one-way ride. With your thunderous hosts, Kurt Squires, Greg Ferguson, and Eric Cube. Are you ready?
Welcome to our season finale of ACDC Beyond the Thunder, a show where extraordinary fans get to share their affinity for our favorite Australian band and how they've been influenced in such whimsical and wonderful ways. I'm your afflicted host, Kurt Squires. To my right is co-pilot Triple G, Mr. Greg Ferguson, along with our rock and roll train engineer, Eric Kielb. Guys, another season, man. Another ticket on a one-way ride, eh?
Yeah, I'm not ready for this ride to end, though, but this is the last episode of our season 4. You know, this episode's taking us all the way to California, where we're going to meet someone who's going to make you laugh, someone who might sing along, and someone who's just going to make you sit up and listen. It's going to be Mr. Dean Delray.
Do we call that kind of a person a Renaissance man? Is that the phrase?
I think it is, but this guy's not from Europe. He's 100% California.
Okay.
You know, in the vein of the Renaissance man, I did look up the meaning of Delray, and it is French for the king.
Oh.
So, you know, this guy very well may be the next Delray of comedy.
Oh, well played, Greg. Well played. I briefly met this guy at Power Trip. I may have referenced it in a previous episode, and I was talking with Eddie Trunk. Over walks Dean Delray, and Eddie introduces me to him and says, Dean, you should be on ACDC Beyond the Thunder. So that was mighty nice of Eddie. Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. And just as a reminder, I want to, all our listeners know that this is something that we do for free. And if you're enjoying the program, believe in what we're doing, consider donating as little as $1 to the show. And 100% of those proceeds go directly to Make-A-Wish Foundation, the Nordic Robbins Music Therapy Foundations. And thank you for all the donations that our listeners have given so far. We salute the ACDC Beyond the Thunder community for leaning in. Simply go to beyondthethunder.com, hit the charity button before or after listening to each episode, and that's it. All right, I'm looking forward to digging in with Mr. Delray, and he does have a huge career in showbiz. I think he probably knows everyone there is to know in showbiz, so let's get started.
Okay, as you folks know, ACDC Beyond the Thunder is a podcast spawned from the documentary film that Greg and I created back in 2008 about how this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band has influenced such high-profile guests in truly enlightening ways, from actors and astronauts, comedians to classical musicians, tattoo artists to tribute bands, even rappers, wrestlers, and decorated war heroes. But we're here to find out that secret sauce behind one of the biggest bands on the planet and all the stories of diversity and damnation caused by this little band by the name of ACDC. And today's particular guest has probably at one time or another, or most likely at the same time, been all of these things. He's a comedian, he's an actor, he's a musician, with pipes that would even make the late, great Bon Scott proud. And he's the host and creator of the Grandmaster podcast, Let There Be Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Mr. Dean Delray.
What is up? Hey. What's happening?
Dean, fantastic to have you on ACDC Beyond the Thunder. Did we leave anything out? Have you been an astronaut too?
I've gone to the moon a few times from narcotics. But
well, we briefly met. We were talking, and we met at Power Trip right before Tool took the stage on day 3. I was talking with Eddie Trunk, and you came over, and Eddie had asked me what I thought of AC/DC's set, and I said, Eddie, I have to be honest with you, I was so happy that I almost cried. And he said that Lars Ulrich said pretty much the same thing backstage. What was your takeaway from that day?
Oh man, there's like, as you watch the band, I've been seeing them since 1978. It's that's the last night I'm going to see AC/DC. So to me, it was a great, great, long, amazing journey, and thankful that I've got to see one of the most potent bands during the era where they were just like, from Power Age, Highway to Hell, Back in Black, Those About to Rock, Flick of the Switch. Those tours are, and I've seen a couple thousand shows. Those 5 eras are so fucking mind-boggling to me of what a punch in the face a live rock and roll band can produce. It's pretty amazing. So, I mean, Power Trip was fun and everything, but to me, the early days of no cell phones and all of that, just the organicness of being at a concert with 15,000 people is just mind-boggling that I had that in my lifetime. The last time we saw Angus, he's like 60.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 60 in a couple years, so that doesn't seem old to me because I'm going to be 60. But when you think about 7 years from now, if I think about me trying to sing the Bon Scott stuff, and it's really the volume that'll take you out, man.
Yeah.
At Cliff Williams' age, Brian Johnson already had the hearing problems.
Yeah.
And then, a Phil Rudd, if he was back there, a good 14-minute Let There Be Rock, that'll take you down for a week.
Yeah. I was shocked Brian made it through that set. I was getting nervous for him.
Yeah. And it was definitely, I don't think they needed to play that many songs. It seemed like an ego thing. I think they could have done 16 songs and really, that was taxing.
I don't know how he's going to do it in Europe. I really don't.
24 songs or something, man. 22.
I'm actually shocked they're doing so many shows in Europe too. I thought they were going to do like major cities around the globe and then
like a quick
but
spin,
they're like there's like 10 in Germany alone.
Well, the weird part too is completing the mystique of ACDC. Of course, they're the weirdest band ever, other than the Ramones, where you're just like, what is going on with this band? They never let you know.
No.
But they did not announce Farewell. They did not announce 50-year anniversary tour.
No.
There was no announcement but tour dates.
No, classic.
So now you're like, well, wait a minute. Is this the last tour? Is this the 50th year anniversary tour? Is this, what is it? Or is it just the Power Up tour? Like nothing happened. We're just going to keep going, because there's no way Brian could do this a couple years from now. I just don't think that many dates. I just don't.
It's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they got 4 days off every,
Yeah.
but, they came on and they're like, whoa, man, these guys are way older.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course they're way older because it's been 7 years.
Yeah.
But you don't think of that in an age-wise, because that COVID blur.
Right.
Where it seems like, but man, it's been fucking years since they were on stage.
Yeah.
And it's really hard music to play.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing. And they're, you think of them as ageless, but they're not,
They're not. If you just said, hey, we're going to play, it's the 50-year anniversary. We're going to play Back in Black and 4 encores. People would be going crazy.
Still going to line up for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Back in Black's 10 songs, then you got 4. Okay, let's say 17 songs set. They close with Let There Be Rock, of course.
Yes. You mentioned 1978. I wanted to take a trip back to the Bay Area. And like many folks our age, it was Kiss that first got your attention, that lit your fire for the love of music. But that one monumental day, the Day on the Green show in 1978, your mom brought you to that show to see Ted Nugent originally, but this little band called ACDC just totally blew your mind. Can you take us back to that day?
Yeah, I wanted to see Ted Nugent. He was huge at the time, Double Live Gonzo. And the Nuge, there was nobody really bigger than him at the time. I mean, you got to think about the Oakland Coliseum. There were the series called Day on the Greens that Bill Graham put together over, I think it was like from 74 to around 89 or something. But he put together these packages, and a lot of times the bands were just kind of coming up. And you have to think about the opportunity that ACDC got early on by playing in front of 69,000, 65,000 people twice in a 2-month period, because they were there a few months before.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And before that was 77, when they were playing just the clubs, the old Waldorf in San Francisco, Whiskey a Go-Go, all of those type of clubs across America. So even Judas Priest, when I interviewed Rob Halford, Judas Priest opened for Led Zeppelin at a Day on the Green, the last 2 shows Zeppelin ever played in America ever in 1977. So to have this type of opportunity, and also the thrill of an audience discovering something that wasn't on TikTok or something where you just be like, that's cool, and you just keep going, where you're actually go home and go, who the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And you immediately tell your friends, the locker in high school, and then somebody goes, oh, my big brother has that record, come over and we'll listen to it while he's at work.
Right.
That kind of shit is, it's long gone. And, I'm glad that I grew up in that era, and I'm not like a Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn type of person, because I listen to so much new music, but the way that it would hit you back then is way different than something hitting you right now.
Right. Well, we're sad to hear that your mom has since passed, but we have to say, what a cool mom for doing that.
Yeah,
and
sure.
that cool moms have been the recurring theme this season for some reason, as well as Day on the Green. Like, these 2 things have come up all season long, which is pretty cool, but awesome that she brought you to that life-changing moment, huh?
And I was very lucky that I grew up in the Bay Area. There's people that I've met over the years, and they lived in cities and states where big bands back then didn't go through those states. They'd just be like, nah, there's not enough money there, we'll keep going. But to go and see that day, the lineup was Cheap Trick, then ACDC, then Journey.
Wow.
The first, few shows with Steve Perry, the Infinity record. Then Blue Oyster Cult, who was absolutely fucking massive with Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then the Nuge with Double Live Gonzo. To see that that day of music, and then that, from then on, going to all the Day on the Greens nonstop,
You can do, 'cause I'm a welcome child. Welcome child. I'm a welcome child.
And Angus came through the crowd on actually Bond's shoulders. Later it became a roadie that would carry him.
Right.
But Bond was just going through the fucking crowd.
Wow.
And, everybody was obsessed with Angus, and I've said it a million times, but I was more obsessed with Bond because, nobody had tattoos back then unless you were in a fucking prison or whatever, you had the big old parrots.
Or in the Navy.
Yeah. And it's fucking 11:45 in the morning. So actually, I got a
That's insane.
Hold on, I got a picture I found. I just saw it. And it listed the set times, and Bill Graham's like looking over it. Here it is right here. So Cheap Trick went on at 10:15 and played till 11. ACDC went on at 11:30, played till 12:15. Then Journey, 12:50 to 2:05. Blue Oyster Cult, 2:40 to 3:50. Nugent, 4:30 to 6. All daytime.
What a long day.
Yeah, and I've been pretty much obsessed with Day and the Greens ever since because there was really nothing better than a Day and the Green. You look at all the lineups, you can Wikipedia Day and the Green
Yeah.
and look at the lineups and look at the era that the bands were playing.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, this is fucking insane.
Yeah.
You know?
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of photographs, a handful of years later, we saw that photo of you, Angus, and Brian backstage, Fly on the Wall tour. Was it the Cow Palace?
Cow Palace.
How did you get backstage, and how awesome is that photo?
I'll tell you what, that is the first time I really met my heroes. You know, when you're a kid, look, later in life, I met everybody because you're in the industry. I played music. Eventually, you start to meet people if you get some traction in your band. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But this was, I was obsessed with ACDC, and there was a woman named Sheila Renee that would interview all the big bands when they'd come to San Francisco for different outlets, KSJO, KOME, or Bam Magazine or whatever. So she called me one day and she said, hey, I'm interviewing ACDC. So why don't you meet me at the Cow Palace during the day? You'll get to meet them. I was like, no fucking way.
Wow.
Sure enough, man, I met him. I skydived a couple times in my life, and skydiving is something where you jump out and the adrenaline is so fierce that you don't remember the first couple seconds. And that's what it was like when I was meeting ACDC, which, you know, right there is Brian Johnson, who, by the way, looks young in that photo, which is funny.
He does. That was Greg's very first concert ever, and my first time seeing ACDC was on that
Fly on
tour.
the Wall.
That was a big moment for us. You had a few years
Simon
on us.
White on drums.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Simon was great.
But I remember just meeting him, and I was just kind of there like, oh, fuck. And I brought a camera because I knew I was going to meet him, or hopefully was going to meet him.
Yeah.
And man, I still own that photo to this day. You know?
Great with the Exodus t-shirt on.
Which is crazy because that really told me what era it was too, because I couldn't remember if it was Flick of the Switch or Fly on the Wall, but then Bonded by Blood wasn't out when Flick of the Switch was. So then I was like, oh, this is when it was.
Right. Well, by ninth grade, you were in your very first band. When did you know you could sing? Were you inspired by Bond that very day in 78 or?
No, I only started singing because nobody wanted to sing. You know, I bought an SG and I wanted to be Angus, but I just couldn't play lead that good. And the dudes in my neighborhood, everybody back then played guitar. And, you know, I mean, everyone.
Right.
It was fucking everywhere. And dudes were good, man. I mean, God, there was guys in my town that just killed. So I was like, fuck it, I'll be the singer. You know, singing is hard as fuck, man, because it's your body.
Yeah.
Like guitar, at least you got an amplifier and effects and you can make sounds. And, you know, you just got to protect your fingers. But with singing, you really, really have to rest your voice. You have to learn how to sing. You have to train. I mean, obviously, Bon Scott didn't do any of that. None of those guys did that shit back in the day.
No.
But now they all do. They warm up.
Yeah.
You know, they don't party, or, you know, you don't talk or whatever. But, you know, with Bon, if you listen to any of the live stuff, that was obviously his voice. Because he sounds like fucking Bon live. Where if you listen to a lot of singers live, they're just not that good. But with Bon, man, you listen to him live and you just go, well, that was his voice.
Yeah.
And when you watch people do Bon Scott or Brian Johnson, they're always doing it wrong.
Right.
You know, like they're squeezing.
Right. Right. They're pretending.
You know, and that's where you trash your voice, you know. So that was Bon's voice.
Right.
And he always sounded good.
Well, you got years under your belt as a musician, and you, after playing and honing your Bon Scott vocal prowess, which you do have a great Bon sounding voice. You eventually toured with Tom Petty, Lenny Kravitz, Black Crowes. You were signed by Linda Perry of Four Non Blondes. And at one point, even as a world tour host for the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
25 years in the biz. And actually, I have to say, I listened to your Lone Mountain Serenade LP.
Yeah.
That was a pleasant little surprise. There's some cool stuff on there.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I mean, I sing rock, but eventually, as I started to get older, I just fell in love with like alt country and roots rock and, anything from Wilco and Sunvolt and, Black Crowes, Southern Harmony era. So, Lucinda Williams, Car Wheels on a Gravel Road.
Yeah.
The Jayhawks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Wallflowers were one of my favorites.
I was going to say, it reminded me of Wallflowers, that album.
Yeah, I toured 10 months with the Wallflowers on that record. And Jacob and I are like, best friends.
Oh, wow. Wow. No wonder. Yeah, that was the vibe I was getting from that album. Wouldn't that come out like 25 years ago?
I think it came out in 99.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What I love about that record is I always say there's no cringeworthy moments on it. I really, I wrote and recorded and produced and paid for that record myself and then signed to Interscope by Linda Perry. But I really like that record still now. And, that's what I'm shooting for as far as my comedy, to get to put something out. Instead of just throwing garbage out, put something out that later on you're not like, ooh,
yeah,
no cringeworthy moments,
That's a good motto to live by.
Haven't seen my 2 kills in quite a while. Whoa. It's almost embarrassing just to see them smile. Yeah, oh. Hang on, baby, hold tight, yeah. Hang on, baby, hold tight. Hang on, baby, I'll make it right, yeah.
Your next career move was kind of a wild turn, sidestepping music to focus on another passion of yours, which is motorcycles, where you landed a job at Harley, and you were then a consultant on a biker film, which was called Quentin Tarantino Presents Hell Ride, starring, it had Michael Madsen, Dennis Hopper, David Carradine, and Dean Delray as, can you tell our listeners your character name?
Ape shit.
I watched that movie recently. That's a pretty hard R, man.
Yeah, that fucking film. Tarantino was supposed to be in that movie. I ended up singing some of the soundtrack too, which was fucking great.
Oh, cool.
That is cool.
But Tarantino backed out at the last minute. He's like, I don't want to act anymore. Which is cool. I get it. But then later on, he did some other movies again. I was like, hey, man, you should have did ours, you fucker. I remember, what happened was I was selling motorcycles and Tarantino's people came down to the Harley shop I worked at. And they said, we're shooting a biker film. Would you be an advisor on it? And at the time, and still to this day, I'm absolutely obsessed with motorcycles. All different types. It doesn't have to be Harley Davidson. I love BMW probably the most, Ducati. So I said, yeah, I'll be an advisor. And then I landed a role on the film. And this is really how I got into comedy. From there, I landed a role on an Ice Cube film that had 3 comedians in the movie. Garrett Morris from SNL.
Yeah.
Earthquake, who's a big star now. And then Michael Collier. And during that movie, we shot for 2 months. Here I am, all of a sudden, I'm in movies now.
That's amazing. Amazing.
I'm just like, this is some Forrest Gump shit. But I always say, man, if you want to do something, you gotta if you want to fucking pan for gold, you gotta be in the river. I couldn't live in like Idaho and land a Quentin Tarantino film. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or I lived in the Bay Area and landed that Stones gig, shit like that. You have to be where it's happening. Not as much these days because of Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, but you still have to obtain relationships with people to where you'd be recommended for stuff and shit like that. So
Right.
I always compare that to the Pacino part in Godfather 3. I was out and they pulled me back in.
Yes.
I was out of music. I was like, I played music 25 years.
Yeah.
I had a good run. I'm going to sell motorcycles and just get some health care and ride it out.
Yeah.
And the fucking entertainment gods had different plans for me. And
I love it.
what a fucking change too, because then I start doing stand-up comedy. And from there, all my dreams have come true. Madison Square Garden.
That's awesome.
Insane.
The Oakland Arena, Red Rocks, LA Forum 2 times, with Burr, but still I've headlined all around America. I've had a podcast for 12 years. I interviewed ACDC, the only podcast ever to have them. So all my dreams have come true from comedy. I love it more than anything I've ever done.
Yeah. Talk about steamroll, man. It's just a snowball effect. It just keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. I'm 58. I tell everybody my age because I want to give them inspiration of like, I started comedy at 44 years old.
That's amazing. Speaking of motorcycles, you had a bad spill just like Bon Scott, didn't you?
Yeah, Bond, that's classic that he got fucking taken out. Yeah, some meth head ran me over in a carjacking. She stole a
Holy
Cadillac
shit.
Escalade and was tweaking on meth and ran me over doing 70 miles an hour on the 110 freeway by Dodger Stadium. So
Damn.
I don't know how I'm alive,
That's
but
crazy.
thank God I am because. But I tell everybody this: when I got hit as I was sliding down the freeway, I actually remember really vividly that I said to myself, "Well, this is it, no regrets." And man, to be able to say that is it's fucking great. Yeah, no regrets.
When did that happen?
That happened like fucking 5-6 years ago now.
Okay. Well, I got to ask because I know you sport an incredible Bon Scott tattoo. Was the
Yeah.
tattoo affected at all? Did you have asphalt all
I
through?
got lucky; it didn't hit that.
Oh, good.
It peeled off some on my arm. I got a dragon on my arm, and it peeled the dragon off,
Yeah.
and it peeled another piece off. And people are like, "Are you going to get those redone?" I was like, "Nah, man. It looks good."
Battle
It's just
scars. Oh, damn.
battle.
Do you have any other
Yeah.
ACDC tattoos?
No. I just got that one. I wanted Bon Scott.
Yeah.
Scott Ian, who's a good friend of mine,
Yeah.
had gotten Angus at the time from the Highway to Hell cover.
Yes. And Malcolm.
Yeah, he's got him on his biceps.
Yeah. So I got the Bond one, man. It took a long time. Great tattooer named Nico Hurtado did it. And he was giving me the tattoo and it was fucking really painful. And I'm covered in tattoos. And I was like, this is fucked. And he goes, oh yeah, the rib cage, it hurts the most. And I was like, fuck. So he worked on it for about 8 hours. It's huge. And
man.
there was, he goes, let's take a break, come back in a few weeks. Well, when you look, it was just hair and no face. So it was like a faceless rocker. It just looked like George Washington or something, just hair and a chest with the necklace. He's wearing that necklace,
Yes.
but no face. So it was just this faceless rocker.
Oh my God.
And then I often tell this story that I put a lot of faith in Nico. I really did a lot of research on who does good, portraits, because if it's wrong, you just got a man tattooed on your side. People don't know it's Bon Scott. If the guy did, like, I've seen some bad fucking portraits on Instagram.
Yeah.
And you look at those and you go like, oh, dude,
Damn.
if it goes wrong, you've got a dude
Yeah.
permanently on your side.
Yep.
Oh man. So let's go back to comedy. So at 44, you
Yeah.
decide to take a crack at comedy. 5,000 shows later, here we are. You must have the thickest skin. That is like the most dangerous occupation. And I know people who are super funny, but it's a different thing to go up on stage because that's like half the battle in my mind.
Well, people, I always laugh when people go, well, I'm funny, I could do that. And it's like,
Yeah.
first of all, you're funny because you're around your 5 dumb friends and they know your background. So you're riffing on some old dumb story or something. So as soon as you get on stage and you think I'm funny and you're telling a joke about, I was down at the construction site today and Timmy didn't look, but I threw a fucking nail at him. It's like you're trying to tell some story that might have been funny around your friends and
Right.
it immediately gets a fucking blank face.
Right.
And then you're done. Your cold sweats start happening. You start hyperventilating. You're looking at your watch like, I thought I was supposed to be up here for 5 minutes.
Oh
You've
man.
only been on a minute and you want to get off.
It's got to be brutal.
Brutal.
I loved your influences. They're honestly probably my top influences for listening to comedians. Carlin, Pryor, Cheech and Chong. I absolutely loved the original SNL characters, cast and characters. But I have to say, one of your comedic heroes was Conan, and getting on that show must have been, you must have been over the moon.
I was supposed to do the Tonight Show, and I didn't really care about doing the Tonight Show. I only wanted to do it for my mom because we grew up watching Johnny Carson.
Sure.
Yep.
And my mom, if I said I'm doing the Tonight Show, she'd be like, oh, that's amazing. But later in life, we fell in love with Conan, and it was just such a, Letterman was incredible. Letterman to me to me it's Johnny Carson, Letterman, Conan.
Yeah.
Those are the dudes.
Yeah.
And so I was supposed to do the Tonight Show, and it was just kind of like you got to get this 5 minutes together. Then I got it together after 3 months, turned it in, and they said, okay, well, sometime next year. And I was like, next year?
Wow.
I'm not going to be doing this 5 minutes next year. This is what I'm working on in this 3-month period right now.
Yeah.
So I sent it over to JP, who's the booker for Conan, and on a Thursday. And I said, hey, I just want to send over my tape. He called me on Friday and said, can you do Monday?
Wow.
Wow.
You mean this Monday? And at the time I was in Atlantic City with Burr. And he goes, yeah, this Monday. It'll be Mark Maron will be the guest. Burr Kreischer will be the guest. And it'll be like a Comedy Store flavor.
Wow. All your buddies.
So I saw Bill when he got off stage, because I got the call in between me being on stage and Bill. And I go, dude, I'm going to fucking do Conan. And he's like, what? I go, yeah. And he goes, that's amazing. And my mom was just so fired up because here I was. I think I was like 50. I'm 58 now. So I was like 54 or something. And I'm doing Conan.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
Everything I strive for in music, I got in comedy. And, I just love comedy more than anything I've ever done because it's me. And my work ethic and my drive is going to get me somewhere. When you got band members, you're going to have some weak links,
Yeah.
And look at ACDC. They've gone through so many members, even at the beginning, multiple drummers, multiple singers,
Sure.
multiple bass players.
Right. It's all on you as a comedian.
It's hard to be in a band, man.
Yeah. Do you mind if we play a little clip from Conan?
Sure.
All right.
I hadn't smoked weed in 7 years, And a guy walked up to me in Denver. He goes, hey, you want to get high? And I go, yeah, let's do it. I just took 3 hits. He goes, uh-oh. And then he just walks away. I was like, hey, what's uh-oh? And then I tried to move, right? I was like, uh-oh. I was paralyzed. My legs wouldn't work at all. I was drooling like a snake bit me. I was trying to get to my car. I was like, this is terrible. Who likes this? Then I got in the back seat. I was hiding for a couple hours, just freaking out, paranoid, right? And then I realized I don't even have a car.
So good.
Hey, just a reminder to all of you ACDC Beyond the Thunder podcast listeners, if you want to catch Dean opening for Bill Burr this spring, they're tag teaming everywhere from LA to San Diego, Denver, Berkeley, Springfield, Las Vegas, and Minneapolis, playing places like the Hollywood Bowl, Mic Drop Comedy, Belco Theater, Blue Room, Greek Theater, Comedy Cellar, and more. To buy tickets, go to deandelray.com and support your fellow ACDC loving comedians. I also heard that later after the Conan show that you and Bill Burr and Conan were at the Forum doing your own little private gig. Did any ACDC break out before the comedy show?
Yeah, we Bill and he said, let's just play some music in the Forum during the day before the show.
Wow.
Conan wants to come down. I go, that'd be great. And then I invited some friends, to come play.
Wow.
And Conan came down and Conan's great, man, on guitar and he's way into like rockabilly, like Stray Cats and Elvis and
he's got the hair for it.
And he was killing it, man. He had a Strat with all these stickers on and
wow.
It was great. He's just fucking rocking out. We're going to rock this town. In town. Awesome. And Conan also did Creep by Radio.
Oh, wow.
Get out.
Yeah, so he was killer. And then we did Whole Lotta Rosie. And that was the first time I was kind of filming myself. And I put it up on Instagram and Rogan saw the clip and talked about it on his podcast. And it was like all of a sudden I had like 2,000 followers in like 1 minute.
Wow. That's
classic.
Amazing. Well, since then you've opened for Chris Rock, Seinfeld, Ali Wong, Mark Maron, Daniel Tosh. The list goes on. It's pretty impressive. And then you're currently on tour with Bill Burr, another fellow AC/DC fan.
Yep.
Writing jokes, I would think, would be harder than writing a song. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's super hard because with when you're writing a song, the lyrics, it's only, sometimes it's like 3 paragraphs, here's the verse, then the chorus, then another verse, then a chorus, maybe a bridge, and then a verse, and you're done.
Yeah.
But with jokes, man, the amount of writing that's in an hour compared to amount of writing that's in a full LP is mind-boggling. And it's just, and it's constantly tweaking. But that's what I love about comedy is with lyrics, once the record's out, that's the lyrics, except for like say AC/DC, how he changed the jack from, the studio version to the If You Want Blood version.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You never hear of a band doing that.
No.
That was crazy. Comes on, see if you ever recognize this one. And it's totally different fucking lyrics.
I love that.
And you've seen that with the band.
She gave me her body. But it seems to me like she gave it to just anybody. But I made her cry. And I made her scream. I took her high. And I curdled her cream. She told me she was a virgin. She was number 999 on the clinical list. And I fell in love.
That's what I love with comedy. You have the outline of the joke. You know what the punchlines are, but you can fucking swim in and out of that to keep the bit fresh to where you're not fucking burnt on it.
Yeah.
Here's a question. On a previous episode of AC/DC Beyond the Thunder, we asked Jim Brewer, what's so funny about AC/DC? What would your answer be to that?
What's so funny about AC/DC? Well, I talk about it a lot that AC/DC back in the day, I've played music. And if somebody showed up at an audition Bond's age, you'd be like, no, you're old.
Yes.
Because you got to think, he was way older than them. And, back then when you put an ad out for a band member, I mean, you can probably Google like band members wanted ads from the 80s, but they always said the same thing. It would say lead singer wanted, must be a pro, long hair a must, no old dudes, no fat dudes. Right in the ad. Straight ageism.
Really?
Nowadays they'd be like, I'm triggered by this ad. I'm a little chunky, but I can sing or whatever. But back then it was just straight up. If a guy came in old, you'd be like, you'd look at each other and you go, we'll just have him play one song and we'll get him out of here.
Yeah.
Instead of calling him out like, hey, dude, you're way old. We're fucking 19. Whenever bands like Greta Van Fleet, they go, look how young they are. I always tell people, do you understand? All the bands are that age.
Yeah.
You just don't know about them till they're famous. And sometimes it takes way longer now. But every band in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, the Beatles, all of them, they were 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Nobody realizes that because they had crazy sideburns.
Right.
They parted their hair on the side like a serial killer. They immediately looked old because of the sideburns and shit. Like when I was young, I thought John Belushi was old.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was like 22 years old.
Yeah. He lived hard, fast.
So that's the funny thing, man. When you look at fucking ACDC, I'm telling you, man, it was so fierce that labels would be like, and I know bands this happened to, they go, you got to get rid of the fat bass player.
Wow.
You can't have a fat bass player. And that fucking would be straight up from the A&R guy. And the dudes would fire their lifelong friend.
That's brutal.
To make it. They'd be like, sorry, dude, we got to get rid of you. You're just fat.
Especially during the MTV days when everything's visual.
So
yeah.
ACDC, a label would look at him and go, hey, man, your singer is like your dad. That's the amazing thing is you got Angus who's dressed as a kid and you got the old dude who's singing and nobody's going like, that guy's old.
Right.
No one.
That's
It's
funny.
so kick-ass.
I remember you asked Mark Evans, he was on the show and he said there's a real sense of humor with ACDC. That's totally true. It really was. There was a lot of humor with ACDC.
Well, the early lyrics are goofy and like I got big balls and all that.
Yeah.
I am a real rigid guy in the sand when it comes to jokey rock. I love comedy and I love rock. I don't like jokey rock. I don't like, comical songs and stuff. It just never grabbed me. And so some of that early Bond stuff wasn't really for me. I got big balls, Crab City and Blues. When you're calling on the rain,
What about the other way around? Do you ever combine music with your comedy?
No. That's just it's such a no for me.
Okay.
The Bond that I really relate to is the potent, dark, rockin' Bond.
Yeah.
Problem Child, Overdose, Live Wire, Let There Be Rock, Night Prowler, Shot Down in Flame. The stuff that is just like, what the fuck? It is so rockin'.
Yeah.
Yep.
I recently went to Vegas with my wife for Eddie Trunk's 40th year in radio, and you had mentioned the U2 Sphere, which we did catch that show. And then halfway through, I left to go to a Jim Jeffries show like an idiot.
That was the biggest, worst movie ever.
It sounds crazy, but I have I had made the reservations with Jeffries, and then at the last second I went to U2, and we hustle over there, and Jim Jeffries is late because he was at the U2 show.
Oh, well, Jim Jeffries was smart. He stayed.
Yeah. But he did come out to Highway to Hell, so that was a saving grace.
I'll tell you what, AC/DC could be playing next door, and I would have stayed in that U2 Sphere show.
It's amazing.
I am such a huge Octung Baby fan.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the greatest records ever made.
It's
To
amazing.
watch that record in that venue was like, I'm winding down my live concerts. I do a bit right now where I say I got like 4 left in me. And man, I think the concerts I see from now on will only be in the Sphere.
That thing was amazing. That thing was absolutely amazing.
It is fucking crazy.
I wanted to mention a couple of other notable spots. You mentioned Joe Rogan Experience, WTF with Mark Maron. You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes, and amazingly opening for Metallica for what was it, their 40th or something?
Yeah, 40-year anniversary.
It's safe to say you found your niche, man. You found your niche.
Yeah, I got lucky on that, man, because Jim Brewer didn't do it. And so I got called to do it.
Wow. Well, you got to scratch that rock and roll itch again with this phenomenal tribute to Bon Scott comedy rock show that you hold in Hollywood every year, featuring an all-star cast. I'm going to list some of these guys because it's just unbelievable. There's Bill Burr, Nikki Sixx, Scott Ian, Mark Maron, Dave Lombardo, Josh Freese, Scott Holiday, and Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons. Love the band. Mike Inez, Billy Rowe, Greg Dooley, Rudy Sarzo, Dave Kushner, Steve Gorman, George Lynch. I think we even saw Solo Dallas in there one time, who was on the show, who was amazing.
Burr from Primus.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Unbelievable.
He does a mean Angus where kills it.
You know who does a mean Bon Scott is you. It's that you have the vibrato, the gusto, the vocals are just incredible. In fact, I wanted to have listeners hear your rendition of Kicked in the Teeth. Do you mind if we cue
Go ahead.
Cue that up, Eric? That's one of my favorite performances from you.
I love that song.
Sounds so good. Awesome. And that's Bill on drums, right?
That's Bill on drums on this song, yeah.
Wow. Nice little bass line there. Wow. Is that one of your favorites off Power
Yeah.
Age? Yeah, that's a
Kicked in the Teeth, Overdose,
Yep.
Bad Boy Boogie, Live Wire, Let There Be Rock.
wow.
A Nightcrawler. Those are the 6 that I will sing anywhere, anytime.
That's awesome. That's funny. Mine are Night Prowler, Spellbound, Overdose.
Spellbound's so fucking good. To me, the Those About to Rock record is one of the greatest records ever fucking made, man.
Thank you for saying that.
It's just a goddamn masterpiece. And Flick of the Switch, the most underrated record. Anybody else put that record out, it'd be their greatest record ever.
I'm glad you said that. I think Highway to Hell hooked me. Back in Black was like, wow. And then For Those About to Rock, cemented.
Those About to Rock is just such a dark, cool record, man. It's, Spellbound and Evil Walks. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So
And
well
Those
produced.
About to Rock, man, is just, I've said it many, many times. ACDC, Those About to Rock, and Let There Be Rock on paper would be cheesy. You'd be like, oh, this is cheesy.
Yeah.
But it's sung with so much fucking heart and reality that you're like, this is fire.
Yeah.
It's not a song that you would write.
No.
because people would be like, "Oh, that's dumb. Get that out of here,"
Yeah.
But man, both those tunes are fucking great. And Brian at that era, man,
Oh, the
like if you
best.
YouTube that Japan Back in Black
Yes.
82,
Yeah, with a
that
big fro.
fucking nuts with the fro and the Sony wireless mic. And
I love it. Well,
man,
those shows you did, the Bon Scott shows, drew attention of Sony when the head of the label flew down, saw your show, was so impressed that he called you up and gave you the opportunity on your podcast, Let There Be Talk, to announce the brand new ACDC album called Power Up and appearances from the band members themselves. Another first.
yeah.
How amazing is that?
Well, I was offered to hear the record 8 months before anybody even knew it was around. So I was laughing, like people were talking on the radio, like, yeah, I think they're done. It's not, there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, I had to keep this secret. First of all, I had to sign an NDA. You got to sign these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They brought me down to Sony Records in Culver City, and they brought me in Topo Chico water that I drink. And it was just me and this guy, and he's fucking become a friend ever since. We're sitting there. He's like, "You ready?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm going to play you the new ACDC record." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he played Power Up. And I was like, "This is fucking crazy."
Wow.
And then I couldn't tell anybody for 8 months. And,
That's insane.
people would be talking on the radio or something. I'm like, "Man, I want to call and just go, you guys are so fucking wrong."
You knew all along.
Yeah. And then he was a big supporter of the Bond Bash and became a great friend. And
That's
it
cool.
really, really helped me get the band members, man. I mean, most important, he got me Cliff Williams and Phil Rudd,
Oh,
which are two guys that never do interviews. So
never.
I mean, these are two dudes that I was dying to talk to. And the Phil Rudd interview was really hard to do because he's just kind of like, yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, I first met Phil backstage during the Stiff Upper Lip tour, and he's signing something. I said, "Hey, Phil, you still flying helicopters in New Zealand?" And he's got a cigarette dangling from his mouth, and he looks up and he goes, "Yeah."
Yeah.
That's all. So I was really impressed with your interview. I love that you said he's the greatest drummer of all time. I love that you brought Bill Burr in to talk about helicopters and Sonar drums. And I love that he name dropped Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's his favorite show. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I watch a little Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You got to think about, like I was just talking about Chris Chaney. I knew Chris Chaney was the bass player for at least 3 weeks. And I knew that they were going to have a new bass player a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I talked about it on the podcast because Cliff Williams straight up said he will no longer be touring.
Right.
And he said it on the podcast. And I felt like people just did not listen to that. I was like, did you just hear what he said? He's he's retired.
Yeah.
And so I knew they were going to have another bass player. And then I also knew that Phil Rudd was not playing in the band not because of legal stuff. People are like, "Oh, well, he got in trouble." So that's so far off. And people just run with that. It's like, you know how hard it is to get into Canada, even if you have a drunk driving. He got into Canada with a hire someone for murder and methamphetamine charges or whatever the charges were. He got into Canada. You think he can't get into the States? A band that is actual billionaires and with power? Fucking, you're crazy. It's definitely not that.
Well, yeah, it's crazy to see this band morph. But you did a great job interviewing those guys. It was so fun to watch you talk. Angus seemed like a little kid talking with you, so that was fun. And now 500,000 followers, 700 plus episodes later. Let There Be Talk is just incredible. The guests that you have on, it's almost easier to list people you haven't had on.
Yeah, that is true. No Springsteen, no Paul McCartney, no Sean Penn.
Oh, you got a little list going. There you go.
Yeah, no Francis Ford Coppola, no Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon's like high up on the list, man.
Really?
Can't get him.
Okay.
Can't get him.
Wow. Good to know. Well, Dean, thank you so much for being here on ACDC Beyond the Thunder. We know listeners will get a big charge out of how you've channeled your ACDC fandom. But before we let you go, throughout your chameleon-like career in showbiz, from being a vocalist, an actor, podcaster, and comedian, you've basically counted on your voice for a living. How has ACDC inspired your voice?
Well, they inspired me just because, like Metallica, on paper, they shouldn't be famous. They're not great looking. They don't have, of course, they have giant radio songs now. But back then, the only song you could really hear would be Sin City, occasionally on the radio. But I love underdogs, and I've been an underdog my entire life. Nothing's been handed to me. I've never had a manager, really, no agent. Nobody wants to work with an older white dude in his late 50s. You know what I mean? So they've inspired me. Those guys, it's like Rollins said. I had Henry Rollins on the podcast. He is one of my fucking favorite humans ever. Yeah. He said, a great front man is somebody you look at and you go, he would not be able to do anything else. He's either the front man or he's dead. Yeah. And that's how I look at ACDC. There's like, they're not going to go get jobs. Right. That was them. And that's me. Although I did have jobs, it was always to keep this thing going, this vision of, I'm not afraid to work a job to be able to do what I love to do, which is comedy or music. The entire time I played music, I always had jobs and shit. Right. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's just the way they influenced me was just like Metallica, work ethic. It was always the work ethic. If you look at those early tours, they played every fucking night. They recorded like 2 records a year. The amount of work they did from, day one all the way up to Fly on the Wall is unreal. Like, I don't even know, as a singer, that just destroys you. There's no nights off.
No.
Yeah. I mean, look at that Back in Black tour. It is crazy. It's every night, 2.5 hours singing full fucking. And that band, man, I don't know if you've ever sat on stage, but they play so fucking loud that it actually rattles your bones, man. Wow. It hurts you. It's
I've lost some hearing.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're on the road with Bill Burr pretty soon. Tell us what listeners can expect in the future for all things Delray.
Well, I'm going to be constantly doing live comedy all over America. So you can go to deandelray.com, find tour dates. My podcast is on there. It's called Let There Be Talk. In the last few weeks, I've had Josh Homme, Queens of the Stone Age. Steve Vai was on. Joe Bonamassa. The list goes on and on. So you're going to either hear me on a podcast or hear me on stage. But I'm always at the Comedy Store, and I'm always around America at comedy clubs. So come out and tell a friend, support live comedy.
Rock on, man. Well, finally, our ultimate question of the day is this, should you choose to accept, Dean. If you had to describe ACDC in one word, what would your word be?
Loud.
That's a first. Awesome. I love that.
That's a good one. That's true.
Very fucking loud, buddy.
ACDC Beyond the Thunder theme song, Trailer Trash, written and performed by Gannon Arnold. VO talent by Bruce Jacobson. Cinematography and sound recording by Greg Ferguson. Edited and mixed by Eric Keel. Written, directed, and hosted by Kurt Squires. Produced by Greg Ferguson, Eric Keel, and Kurt Squires. ACDC Beyond the Thunder is a Squires LLC current motion production. Copyright Beyond the Thunder podcast, all rights reserved. This has been a Nat Attack presentation.
Shazbot Nanu Nana.